Hey folks, thanks for taking the time to jump in today. We're going to be going over the AFWERX process for government and talking about what that process is, what it looks like, and how we can get folks engaged throughout this process we've created. So I'm Captain Joey Arora. I've been in the Air Force for 8 years. I've been co-founder of the AFWERX team and the AFWERX team. I play soccer, like to read, hang out with cool people like Steve, and just have great conversation around the entrepreneurial and ecosystem building space. And so, Steve, I'll pass it over to you for an intro, and then we'll hop into the presentation.
I am way less interesting and eloquent than Joey. So active Air Force captain, Air Force Academy, entered the Air Force in 2011, U-28 pilot for about 4.5 years down at Hobart Field, Florida with AFSOC. And then 2017 joined with Joey, helping to stand up this AFWERX program, which has been awesome. And then most recently AFWERX as well. So any questions related to either phase 1 or phase 2 or direct to phase 2 or StratFi, anything related to AFWERX or AFWERX proper, happy to chime in on that. And it's really good to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So just a heads up, so we just did a lot of poll here. We have about 16 government folks and 29 industry folks. The primary focus of this conversation is going to be on the government personnel. If you're part of the industry community, we'll be doing another talk on the AFWERX process tomorrow at the same time as the AFWERX How and Why. And also Steve and I did a conversation on AFWERX for industry yesterday, and that'll be posted to the AFWERX YouTube page here in the next few hours. So we're going to jump right in. Our whole goal with AFWERX is to take a dual use approach to national security solutions. At the end of the day, our focus and our mission is around making sure airmen have the best capability from the commercial world to leverage that to accomplish the mission they face on a day-to-day basis. Another part of what we do is to create a sense of simplicity so that it's easy for commercial entities to work with the Air Force and for our airmen to start engaging with these companies. We want to create a simple process for that communication to happen on both sides. And lastly, it's a national approach to security. The military is not going to win the next fight alone. It's going to be a combination with the national security innovation base, with commercial companies and organizations that partner with the government to win the next war. It is a combination of economic, diplomatic, information, and military might that will come together to do that. And we have to change this narrative. It's not only the government pushing the R&D solutions, it's the $500 billion of R&D investment that's happening inside of private companies. And it's about who is going to integrate that technology, product, or service into their operations faster. That will change the nature of warfare. So our focus here for airmen is to give you an opportunity to partner with these commercial companies and broaden the defense industrial base. It's been shrinking over the last 20 to 30 years, and we really want to transform that so more and more companies are working with the Air Force and with the Department of Defense. And we want to make sure that these partnerships that we create aren't just one-off opportunities to solve a problem we face, but we want these companies to scale into our programs of record. We want them to be successful both commercially and in the government space because we want to create more competitors. We want to create more unicorns in the defense space. And unicorns are billion-dollar defense companies. So what is our process? At a glance, what you're looking at here is that the ventures process is making thousands of small bets a year. So we're looking at $50,000 per award. This is a feasibility study for those companies to work with an airman, find their customer, find their end user, determine, hey, is this something we can prototype on, do some research and development on to solve a real problem inside of the Air Force. And out of those thousands of small bets, we want to make a few hundred medium-sized bets. That's where we're finding out, hey, we're prototyping a project, we're doing some research and development, and saying it's up to $750,000 for that initial award. We're also encouraging matching funding so that Air Force customers can bring funding to the table and say, yes, they're interested in this potential solution. And over the last couple of years, we've gone through this process numerous times, from the 18.2 cycle to now we're releasing at 20.3. That's how the SBIR STTR cycles work. And it's a chance we've had over 500 prototype projects in place as we've been scaling this program. The Air Force is 100% behind this. And it's about any airman from any level can say, hey, here's a problem I have, and I want to get after solving this. So part of our workshop today will be about airmen getting together in our breakout sessions, defining what those problems are, so we can have a little bit of practice doing that. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you get matched with a company. But the last part of our ventures process is taking those prototype projects where we're making those medium-sized bets and doubling down on our strategic priorities as an Air Force. So it's about $15 million awards, 20 awards plus a year. We've done this earlier, released this information back in March for our first round of strategic financing. And it's been really cool to see how we've taken companies to become programs of record in the Air Force within about 12 to 18 months. And so our whole goal through this process is to speed up the time that it is for an airman to solve a problem to weeks and months, and not months and years. So you might ask, how do you leverage Air Force Ventures? So one of the key things that we ask airmen to do is to check out the Air Force Open topic. We are centralizing the point for all companies to apply to this process. And in order to share your problem statement, we want you to share your focus area. Like, share your problem statement with us. We'll call it a focus area, and we'll push it out to all the commercial entities, both the companies that are applying for this next round and previous companies that have applied, so that we can start matching those companies to you as the government customer. So you can have a further discussion on what problem you're trying to solve, what technology, product, or service might be able to address that, and how can you partner with that company to do so. So we'll walk through where that submission is, and we'll practice submitting a problem statement here in a little bit. So as we talked about here in phase one, right, we're making about 1,000 or so small bets where these companies are doing feasibility studies. They're trying to connect with you as airmen, and we want them to prep for that phase two, where they're going into that prototyping, that solving the problem. So we want you to talk to these companies, do that market research, have that conversation with them. We have collider events we do multiple times a year where that's exactly what the AFWERX challenge showcases. It's a collider between the companies and government stakeholders who might be interested in solving that problem. And we facilitate more of those specifically around this SBIR, STTR Ventures process. And the other piece of that is we want these companies to partner early. So we want you to build a coalition of program management, of your MAGCOM, your program executive office, and the operator, you who is down there facing that problem on a day-to-day basis, and build that coalition of folks who want to solve the problems we face in the Air Force. And the last part that we'll go over during the latter half of our brief today is the customer memorandum. We want you to sit down and build out the milestones for what you're going to prototype with these companies, and do that in a collaborative nature as they go up and compete for these prototype projects. So this is an opportunity and a chance for you to sit down and discuss with the company, hey, this is a problem we're trying to address and solve, document that, and get stakeholder buy-in from all the key folks. So I'll pause there, and I'll actually hand it off to Jared Evans, who will talk about our STTR open topic. This is one of the opportunities we have available right now. And Jared, if you're on, I'd love to have you jump in and chat.
Thanks, Joey, and I appreciate you guys kind of setting this up. So for everyone on the line, you'll know that there's a couple different acronyms thrown around, right? SBIR, STTR, in particular, right? Small Business Innovative Research for SBIR, and STTR is a Small Business Technology Transfer Program. Those are two of the largest kind of tools that we're using in the small business space with AFVentures here to really enable your mission sets and to empower you as users of technology and folks with a mission to complete. And so what these small business programs do is, one, they bring folks in the door who want to work with us as a government, us as a DoD and Air Force, and kind of provide us the mechanism to engage and move forward, and for these companies to ultimately develop their technology for your application in particular. The STTR is really, there's two key differences between that STTR program and the SBIR program. The first is that the small business must have a research institution subcontractor that completes at least 30% of the work plan. These have historically been universities, but they can also include entrepreneurship centers and other types of nonprofits, to even include hospitals in many cases, to complete the work plan that is proposed. Additionally, the STTR program does not require any kind of commercial presence for the product that they're putting in. So they can be early stage, and it really allows us to elicit some of that compelling IP, especially in the research space, into the commercial arena, where we can invest and really develop that solution over time for you and your application. So for small businesses, what they'll need to do, they need to be a U.S.-owned small business. And small business in this context is less than 500 people. So in many times we think of small business being one or two folks. They can be significantly larger than that. Also, they must be registered and be able to ultimately receive U.S. government contracts. That's what I know many times we refer to these programs as grants, but in reality, these are government contracts that are being led. And there you can see they have to submit a proposal. And we talked about that 30% research institution that must be tied in. That inherent partnership between academia or kind of the commercial space there with the research institution and the government and small business is really what helps make this run, right? I don't know if you and your mission set have ever looked across and said, hey, they're doing some really neat stuff with something I'd be interested in. How do I take advantage of what's being done in that university or in that small business space? And this is one way that you can do that. We actually have a couple different solicitations. The one which is currently open, supporting Agility Prime, and then one that's coming up in the X20C open topic. As Joey mentioned, these open topics are open to any eligible small business that meets the eligibility criteria there up above, and it allows those companies to engage not only with us as the AFWERX team and the small business programs, but with you as an Air Force or DAF user. If you want to find out more about these particular solicitations, we've got some links there, and the dates for the X20.C. Ultimately, I want to make sure everyone knows that there's also a portfolio page where you can see all of our current AFWERX small businesses at afwerx.af.mil/portfolio .html, and you can see all of the different companies that we currently have on contract, and that is updated. So after this open topic supporting Agility Prime closes out on 10 August, we will update that list for everyone to view as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But with that, we'll hand it back over to Joey, and I'll be here for questions and typing them in the chat as we move forward. Thanks so much.
Jared, thanks for taking the time to share about STTR. I appreciate that. Now that we've gone over some of the overall programming for AFWERX, I wanted to share how government customers and airmen inside of the Air Force can actually submit a problem statement to the ventures process. So I'm going to share my screen here, and the goal here is to talk about using the Air Force's ideation platform as a place to submit information about your problem statement. So you have to log in to the Air Force's Airmen Powered by Innovation platform. And the way you do that is going to usaf.ideascalegov.com. We also posted the link in chat. I'm logging in here. You can log in with your CAC card. You can also log in with password and two-factor authentication. The goal here is we want you to log in and be able to submit something right here under SBIR focus areas. It's a pretty easy process to just jump in here. All we're asking about is, hey, define what your problem is, give us your contact information, and let us know if you're bringing any funding to the table to get after this problem as well. So that's really what we're asking here. And just click into here, submit a new idea, and will connect you to this focus area process. So what I'd like to do now, as our goal for this, is to actually do a breakout session where the government folks can talk about a problem statement or problem they're facing and actually come up with one during our time here. So we're going to be randomly broken out into self-facilitated breakout groups. There'll be about 7 minutes for each of these breakout groups. The ask is if you can briefly introduce yourselves, and then as a group, discuss a problem statement you want to summarize. So an example that we like to use is, let's say, hey, you wanted to, which traditionally in government say, define all the requirements for what we need. So we'd say, we want a snowflake. I want the snowflake that's 2 inches in size. I want it to have this crystal structure, and I want it to look like this and be delivered at this time. What we want to practice doing is saying, hey, the problem that I face is I need cold, white, fluffy things to fall from the sky, and just be broad and open about what that looks like. And take a couple sentences, take 2 or 3 sentences to define what that problem is. Come as a breakout group, come to a single problem that you want to address, and just write it down. We want to practice doing that during this time today. Any questions about that part? Everybody, thanks for taking the time to jump back. We have about 10 minutes left. So I wanted to hear from a couple folks if you wanted to share the problem statements you came up with, and then do a quick walkthrough of the memorandum of understanding. And we'll then leave it for any Q&A we have at the end. Thanks for bearing with us as we jumped in and out of these Zoom rooms. Would anybody like to come up? Nathan, Jared?
One of the things we talked about was how we can leverage technology to help train up resilience amongst our airmen, particularly looking at solutions for training and how we can better prepare them to tackle difficult situations.
So that's a great high-level problem statement that we want to share, right? So we can figure out, it leaves the door wide open for companies to tell us in the Air Force how we could get after that problem set. And so that's a great way to approach this. Patrick, you asked a question in chat, can the proposal be only for a research paper, or do they have to end with a prototype? Our ventures process is focused on delivering prototypes and transitioning capability to the warfighter, and not as focus as much on just delivering research papers in this case. We want real life research and development that can be applied. So the last piece of today's presentation, I wanted to do a quick overview of the Memorandum of Understanding. So for government customers, our goal is to actually get after and say, hey, you want to work with a specific company. So we created this Memorandum of Understanding process. It's 2 to 3 pages of information that we want you to fill out in coordination with the company, that's saying, hey, I'm interested in working with them, and you actually sit down and create milestones for the project and work that you want to do. So we're constantly updating this and making revisions every round. This is the last MOU that was released for the 20.R round in April. We have an updated version we'll be pushing out for the August and September rounds with just a couple of slight changes I'll talk about here today. So the key thing when you want to look at this MOU is we tried to highlight everything in yellow for the pieces that we need an Air Force customer to fill out. And then all of the things in red are just sort of notes and educational pieces, trying to explain what the intent behind this process is. Very simply up front, we want to have you explain, hey, what's the purpose of doing this prototype project? How does this fit into your mission need? And then what the timeline is. In addition, we're talking a little bit about matching funds. They aren't required for the phase 2s, but we are encouraging that, so we see that there's some skin in the game from Air Force customers, whether this is from Squadron Innovation Funds or from Commanders Funds. We want or Program Office Funds. We want to see some buy-in in this process. Additionally, we talk about If there's other agreements that need to be considered here, we want to see what we call phase 3 is about the transition process. Is there a plan to take this beyond prototype? This is both intentional for the Air Force customer and for the company, so that we can see, hey, is there a pathway forward for this idea? Or we don't want things to just sit on the shelf. We want them to be used. We want them to be actively part of the capabilities we are using and delivering on a day-to-day basis. And then here in the milestone process, it's about defining what you want to see with that prototype project over time. We ask for both an end user and a customer. So the end user is the person that is going to be out in the field using it on a day-to-day basis. And the customer are the people that are buying those things for a project or an organization. So if we were in security forces, for example, and you were looking at a new security evaluation system, it's likely the frontline airmen that are going to be using that on a day-to-day basis, but the people acquiring it will be the headquarters organization. It could be the squadron, or it could be headquarters of security forces at large. We want the other staff functions to be bought in and engaged as well. Right? Our whole goal here is to transform the way the Air Force is doing work and connecting the dots. And we want to get finance, contracting, and legal bought into this process. We also talk about other things in here about installation access. In the 20.3 MOU, you'll also see pieces around, hey, making sure that we've thought about the authority to operate and approval for cybersecurity on Air Force networks. So we want you as the government customer to talk to the company about these things and to your own unit and organization. And we try to help facilitate some of these discussions. So the last quick piece I'll talk about is you actually will sit down with your company and go through the milestones and the timelines you want for each of these. Obviously, the company will determine the pricing, but it's this deliverable of what you want them to create and prototype what the research and development pieces are of the project. So that was a really quick overview of this. I wanted to leave some time for questions and answers. We'll be making a more in-depth video and sharing it out on the AFWERX website. And yes, we'll be posting this on the AFWERX website on the SBIR STTR pages as it becomes live. Also, government folks can reach out to us at support@afwerx.af.mil if you have any questions about this. So, all right, I'll pause there about the MOU. Leave it open for any questions people might have. We can answer things about STTR, SBIR, what the Air Force process is, or how folks get engaged or involved. So, Bill, I see you asked for a copy. Yes, we'll post it on the AFWERX site. If you're a company and you want to submit an idea, our next round of SBIR open topic will go into pre-release August 25th, and we'll open up in September for application submission. And if you want to get notified about sort of solicitations and the next steps in this process, you can sign up for our mailing list at www.afwerx.af.mil and join our community. Patrick, you're asking about the proposals be for a research paper. Do you have to end with a prototype? The focus for our open topic process is that we have prototypes. And it's furthering the research and development of a concept or idea. We have a couple minutes. I'm happy to stay on a few minutes longer. If you want to jump off of mute and have a conversation, you guys are welcome to do that. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that I understand everything. But a lot of this paperwork is going to be done on like the military side. So like we as a business would, for example, create a problem, come up with a solution for it or a plan for how we would address this. And so a lot of like we would suggest a funding amount for this, and it would be completed on the government end.
So Drew, in this case, you would actually, as a company, be working with your identified Air Force customer to fill out this memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
And so if you're a phase 1 company applying for the phase 2 process, well, in the phase 1, we do weekly conversations with all the cohort companies, train them up on the MOU, what the intent and purpose is. And today's call was focused on the government side, trying to educate people on the government side about this process as well.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow's ventures discussion will be a lot more high level.
Hey, Joey, it's Pat Grancer again. Let's say that as a government entity, I talk with a company, we have this MOU, and we get it signed off and drafted. Do we just send it to you and then wait, or like what's the process after that?
Yeah, so after the MOU is created, you will actually submit that as a company will submit that as part of their phase 2 application process. So they'll be submitting it for a competitive selection in the phase 2 applications.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, this is Julie from the Sensors Directorate at AFRL.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, I have a question. When we submit topics or focus areas, there's voting buttons. What are those voting buttons for?
Yeah, that's a feature of the ideation platform. It doesn't have it doesn't have any impact on the focus area process. It's just for community feedback. We should probably turn that off on this particular campaign. Thank you for that feedback.
Okay, we were just wondering.
Yeah, no material function for this process. It's just a function of the platform that was left turned on for that particular campaign.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Julie, yeah, feel free to keep asking questions like that, right? Those little things are good points of feedback for us as we go forward.
Great.
So team, we're at time. I appreciate everyone taking a moment to learn about how to go through this process and engage. Jump back into AFWERX Fusion, check out the showcases, go engage with companies as we're here. I'll stick around for a couple more moments if anyone has any further questions, but thank you for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Hi, this is Paul. Hey, I'm in industry right now. So general question. So I've supported some of the research labs for the U.S. Army, nothing with the Air Force, but my understanding with the SIBR program is, the topics they're not solicited topics. In other words, you guys put out a very defined topic. And I had a conversation a while back at a show where it's almost like you've got one of your topics that you've got posted is for industry to submit a topic area. Is that still the kind of the case, or I don't know if I'm using the right terminology for that, but
yeah. So Paul, in our case for the Air Force, we're doing one open topic where a company can submit any idea, problem, or solution that they have to the Air Force. We're not limiting by a specific area, such as like lasers research. We're saying, hey, any company can submit under the open topic, and we want to do a feasibility study up front, and then continue to doing a prototype and then scaling that solution inside of the government.
So I have a topic area. It would involve, and I don't want to get too much into specifics, but it involves autonomy, AI, and like base security. Is there subject matter experts, or I don't know, point of contacts within the Air Force that I can start a dialogue up with, just to see if they're even interested in this idea? So
yeah, shoot us an email at support@afworks.af.mil. We actually have to wrap up here, so we'll follow up.
What is it? What would that email? All right, go ahead. So
support@afworks.af.mil.
And what would I say in that email?
Saying, hey, this is what we want to submit for the open topic. Would this be a good fit or not?
Okay. All right. And then you'll parse it down to the appropriate people or make a decision. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Hey, Joey, one last question.
Yep.
Would it be possible to get your email address to ask future questions? This is Julie again.
Yeah, I'm shooting it to you, and also support will route any questions to me as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, team. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.